Hello everyone, Joel here. Your Steam library is probably a digital graveyard filled with "I'll play it eventually" titles and that one open world game you've restarted 6 times but never finished. While the big name studios are busy selling you the same sequel with a fresh coat of paint, there's a whole world of RPG masterpieces just sitting there, collecting dust and wondering why you don't love them. This time, we're diving into 15 absolute gems that deserve a spot on your hard drive and hopefully your heart.
It's an effigy of you.
Before we go into the list, I want to give you my recommendation for some of the best deals in instant gaming right now, especially if you're tight on budget. We knew that instant gaming always give us so many crazy deals for your favorite games, like these titles for example. I mean, can you believe these prices? If you love RPGs, there's no way you never heard of these masterpieces, and to think that you can get them under $10 or even $5, it's an absolute steal. All you have to do is just click my link in the description below, start searching for your favorite games and use the activation code on your chosen platform. By using my link, you're not only saving tons of money, but also helping me to support this channel. Alright then, let's get back into the list. Okay, so imagine waiting 22 years for a sequel. That's enough time to finish college, get married, have a kid, and still have time left over to be disappointed by other games. But somehow, Brigandine: The Legend of Runersia made that wait feel completely worth it. At its core, you pick one of 6 nations and try to swallow the entire continent whole, which sounds straightforward until the game hands you what's basically a second job managing troops, monsters, bases, magic pools, and battle strategies all at once. It's Risk meets Final Fantasy tactics, and it genuinely slaps if you're the type who enjoys spreadsheet level thinking disguised as fun. The character artwork is gorgeous, the medieval soundtrack hits different, and 6 playable nations means you'll be here for hundreds of hours. Let's talk about a game that makes you feel like the smartest person in the room, right up until it humbles you completely. Cybernight's Flashpoint drops you under a rotting futuristic dome called New Boston, where mega corporations run everything and you're basically a high-tech mercenary who just went into serious debt for illegal spine surgery. What separates this from every other tactics game is how alive the world feels around your decisions. The stealth system alone is terrifyingly smart. Guards notice when their colleagues stop checking in, and that slow creeping suspicion building across the map creates genuine tension money can't buy. Layer on top a gridless movement system, deep class skill trees, a hacking minigame that deserves its own game, and faction relationships that actually shift based on your choices. And suddenly you've lost 40 hours without blinking. Dying in a roguelike usually just means start over, but Chrono Ark looks you dead in the eyes and says, nope, that wasn't a game over, that was a time loop. It's baked right into the story, and honestly, that's genius. You play as Lucy, an amnesiac girl piecing together her past while trying to restart a clock tower and save a world swallowed by black fog. Sounds straightforward until the narrative quietly pulls the rug out from under you a few hours in. The card combat is where things get genuinely addictive though. 4 characters, each with completely distinct mechanics, and the synergies between them are endless. Even the environments fight back, sometimes restricting which cards you can even play. Every run teaches you something new, and that loop never really gets old. Most JRPGs start with a village getting attacked or some chosen hero waking up with amnesia. Nocturne starts with the entire world ending in the first hour. Your character gets a demon parasite shoved into his spine. Humanity is basically gone, and now you're half demon, wandering a post-apocalyptic hellscape populated by gods, monsters, and philosophical extremists all trying to reshape reality according to their own twisted vision. What makes Nocturne genuinely special is how it refuses to frame anything as good versus evil. Everyone here is a monster, including you, and the story leans into that with zero apology. The press-turn combat system rewards knowing your enemy cold, because one wrong move against the wrong boss and it's simply over. The HD Remaster adds voice acting, better demon fusion controls, and a merciful difficulty for normal humans. The soul of it though, completely untouched, and that's exactly the point.
The 5 races thrived in peace.
Imagine you stumble across a giant inverted tower stepped into the ground like the earth owes it money, and your first instinct is to go inside. Bold choice, terrible survival instincts, but a fantastic game premise. Tower of Time is a dungeon-crawling CRPG where magic and technology collide in a world called Artara, and the whole thing is held together by one genuinely clever trick, the arrow time combat system. Battles run in real time, but you can slow time to a crawl or pause entirely to reposition, redirect, and rethink. It turns every encounter into a mini tactical puzzle rather than a button-mashing sprint, and on higher difficulties, you're actively building choke points, kiting enemies, and managing abilities like a junior general. The lore builds quietly in the background through discovered tomes and a wonderfully ominous narrator, rewarding players who actually pay attention. For a debut title from a small indie studio, the polish here is genuinely surprising.
All right.
May the light guide your path. Acknowledge.
One guy, 6 years of development, and the result? A first-person hack and slash that PC Gamer described as having the power of a god anime and black metal album cover art on its side. And honestly, that sentence alone should tell you everything you need to know about the vibe here. VOIN throws you into a crumbling dark fantasy world as a lightning-forged elemental warrior, and the combat immediately makes a statement. You've got maybe 2 to 5 health points at any time, which sounds terrifying because it is. But striking enemies actually restores health, so the game essentially rewards you for being recklessly aggressive. Play scared and you die. Play like you own the place and suddenly you're leaping off parapets and exploding into zombie hordes. The extraction mechanic adds genuine tension to every run, and the low-poly stop-motion aesthetic is wildly stylish. It's still in early access, but already turning heads for all the right reasons. In the late Ming Dynasty China, a plague called the Feathering is literally turning people into monsters. You wake up as Bai WUCHANG, amnesiac pirate warrior, infected but somehow still functional, and the first thing the game does is hand you a sword and point you towards something that wants you dead. No tutorial, no hand-holding, just vibes and violence. Built by debut studio Lindsay, this Souls-like does something most From Software imitators never manage. It builds a world that actually feels like somewhere. The Unreal Engine 5 visuals are jaw-dropping, with lavish palace rooms covered in rotting flesh, snowbound rebel camps surrounded by undead hordes, and dungeons that loop back on themselves. The madness mechanic adds a brutal risk-reward layer on top of already punishing combat, and the skill tree rewards genuine experimentation across multiple playthroughs. If you've played more than 2 Souls-likes in your life, you already know exactly how AI Limit opens. Waking up with amnesia, crawling through ruins, mysterious voices, enemies hiding behind boxes. It's the genre equivalent of a comfort meal at this point, and AI Limit knows it. So here's what actually makes it interesting. There's no stamina bar. You can swing, dodge, and dash until your fingers fall off, which sounds like a small change until you realize it completely rewires how combat feels. Instead, a sync rate gauge fills as you deal damage and drains when you take hits. Play aggressively and you're powerful, play scared and the whole system collapses on you. Set in a gorgeous post-apocalyptic anime world where a mysterious substance called mud is dismantling what's left of civilization, AI Limit isn't reinventing anything. But as an accessible, snappy entry point into a notoriously brutal genre, it absolutely delivers. Imagine a protagonist so aggressively uninterested in JRPG tropes that he literally pulls out a smartphone to play new metal while a villain is mid-monologue. That is the chaotic energy Jack Garland brings to Stranger of Paradise, a game that was initially dismissed as a meme but secretly hides one of the most addictive combat loops in the genre. Developed by the wizards at Team Ninja, the gameplay feels like a high-octane marriage between the punishing precision of Nioh and the iconic versatility of the Final Fantasy job system. You aren't just poking enemies with a stick, you are brutally shattering them into red crystals and ripping their essence apart. The sheer joy of instantly swapping between a heavy-hitting dragoon and a spell-slinging sage keeps the rhythm feeling fresh, even when the plot goes off the rails. It is a loud, angry, and unironically brilliant masterpiece that proves you don't need a complex motive when you have a giant sword and a burning desire to punch darkness in the face.
We're a few steps behind.
We got this! We got this!
Time to go wild.
Let's talk about the world's worst first day at a new job. You're signing up for a corporate gig only to wake up in a junkyard with a mechanical exoskeleton bolted to your bones, and the health and safety department is nowhere to be found. While most RPGs have you looting wooden chests for a slightly better pair of trousers, this series embraces a targeted dismemberment system that is as brilliant as it is disturbing. If you see a robot or a crazed cultist wearing a helmet you fancy, you don't just hope for a random drop, you strategically hack that specific limb off and keep it for yourself. This tactical limb lopping turns every fight into a high-stakes scavenger hunt where you're literally building your character out of the scrap metal of your enemies. It's a crunchy mechanical soul crusher that makes you feel the weight of every hydraulic swing, proving that sci-fi horror and aggressive fashion acquisition are a match made in gaming heaven. Crystal Project is what happens when a solo dev named Andrew Willman decides to build a Minecraft-looking world and fill it with Final Fantasy V's job system, then just let you loose with zero handholding whatsoever. The entire world of Sequoia is yours to platform through from practically the start. Jump up ledges, scale mountains, stumble into endgame zones way before you're ready, and discover hidden areas that open into entirely new regions. What glues all that exploration together is a combat system that refuses to hide anything from you. Turn order, damage numbers, enemy intentions, all laid out clearly like a proper tactical puzzle. With 24 unlockable job classes and endless team compositions to experiment with, the build variety alone will eat your weekend whole. Before Dark Souls, before Elden Ring, before From Software became a household name among people who enjoy suffering, there was King's Field, a first-person dungeon crawler so slow and so brutally cryptic that most people never heard of it. Lunacid is basically a love letter to that forgotten era, and somehow it sticks the landing completely. It is a hazy, neon-soaked fever dream that feels like playing a haunted PS1 disc found in a dusty attic. Instead of a chosen hero, you're just a criminal tossed into the great well to rot, but jokes on them because this abyss is a gothic playground for weirdos. While most developers obsess over 4K textures, this game proves that low poly fog and a melancholic soundtrack create an atmosphere that truly sticks to your ribs. You'll spend hours wandering through eerie corridors, stumbling over hidden spells and secret passages that make the world feel massive despite its crusty aesthetic. Most games start with a tutorial on how to pick flowers, but Dragon's Dogma kicks things off by having a giant red dragon literally reach into your chest and eat your heart. Talk about a bad first date. This game is the absolute king of climbable combat. Why just hit a griffin in the shins when you can crawl up its back and stab it in the face while it tries to shake you off? It's basically a fantasy hiking simulator where the local wildlife is 50 feet tall and very cranky. Then there's the pawn system, which gives you AI sidekicks who will never ever shut up about wolves hunting in packs, yet you'll still feel weirdly lonely without their constant chatter. Between the terrifyingly pitch-black nights and the sheer chaos of the Bitter Black Isle expansion, it's a masterwork that puts most modern combat systems to shame.
It seems we won.
You ever stumble onto a game that nobody's talking about and then you're 2 hours deep wondering why the entire internet isn't losing their minds over it? That's Symphony of War in a nutshell. An indie strategy RPG that somehow managed to sneak past everyone's radar while quietly delivering one of the most satisfying tactical experiences in years. The squad building system alone is worth the price of entry. Instead of moving single units around, you're assembling entire squads, stacking archers, cavalry, healers, and yes, dragons, into one unstoppable moving formation. The combinations are genuinely endless, and experimenting with them never gets old. The story tackles morally gray politics between empires and literal gods getting involved, which is way more ambitious than it had any right to be coming from an indie studio.
Here's your reward.
It is time to address the controversial middle child of the family that everyone loves to roast until they actually sit down and play it. Dark Souls 2 is the black sheep that decided more is more, throwing a literal army of enemies at you just because it liked the sound of your character dying. While the purists cry about soul memory, this version of the game is secretly a build crafter's wet dream, offering more viable weapons, spells, and fashion options than almost any other entry in the series. It introduces power stancing, which is just a fancy way of saying you can dual-wield giant clubs and turn every boss into a flattened pancake. The world feels like a surreal, melancholic dream, where the levels don't always make geographic sense, like taking an elevator up from a windmill into a volcano, but that's exactly what makes it so hauntingly unique. It's unapologetically weird, punishingly dense, and rewards the patient player who actually learns how to clear a room instead of just panic rolling into a corner. Alright boys, I think that's it for today. I know that there are other games that I haven't mentioned yet, so how about sharing your favorites that probably deserve the spot in the comment section below. Don't forget to like the video and make sure to subscribe the channel if you don't want to miss another great list. Thank you for watching and have a good day. Peace!